Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you know him, you've seen him, you've heard of him, you've probably tweet quoted him a couple times. You might have wanted to see his nudes for some reason, I don't know why, but he is the editor-in-chief of Silver Screen and Roll. Please put your hands together for Mr. Harrison Faigen, ladies and gentlemen.
You know, Mark, I had a joke ready about you being on time for once to start one of these, but, you know, like, now I don't even know what to say. I don't know if I can continue this interview. That was like, I don't know what to say to that introduction.
Are you offended now?
I mean, I don't know whether to be, like, offended or flattered or scared or, you know, I don't know.
I was trying to think. I was like, I got to think outside the box. Every time I always got to switch it up, and I figured I don't know if the words nudes and Harrison Faigen were used in the same sentence, but you heard it here, folks.
Certainly not on air before this moment. So you are a trendsetter in that way.
Yeah,
you beat Anthony Irwin.
Yeah, it's gonna be the new Photoshop. It'll be you and
a naked. Please no, I can't do it.
Be you and a naked giraffe, even though giraffes are naked already.
Yes. Well, I mean, aren't all giraffes naked? I mean, I don't want to go too far down a tangent here.
That's what the government wants you to think.
Dude, we're getting a kick out. I just checked your timeline real quick to see what recently you tweeted. I laughed because I was following it the first time. You going or not talking about Andre Drummond's NFT sale.
Yes, yeah. So he, you know, there was this whole thing where he criticized the Lakers coaching staff, and then he claimed it was like, oh, it was just to get attention for my upcoming NFT launch. And then one of these NFTs, so again, this may sound dumb to people that listen that actually understand NFTs. I don't, and I admit that, but essentially one of them is he's selling it for $50,000. It comes with, you get to like design a shoe with him. I believe you get to go to one of his games next year, wherever he's playing. They don't specify the city in the legal terms, so I thought that was a funny side note. But like the top bid for this $50,000 package thing, Reddit found was $7 and like 83 cents. And so, you know, I tweeted about this, and I'm like, you know, Andre Drummond needs to fire whoever told him that this was a good idea, because $50,000 always seemed outlandish. Now, I figured he'd probably get like a couple $100. I mean, look, whatever you think of Andre Drummond, getting to design a shoe with an NBA player and getting to go to one of their games, you know, get put up in a hotel with a +1 of your choice, that's a pretty cool thing. I'm like, he'll get a couple hundred, couple thousand for this, whatever. The bidding is still at $16 since my tweet. And so, you know, if you want a really good deal and you're listening to this right now, I mean, there's never been a better chance for you to go and meet Andre Drummond and potentially design shoes with him, I guess.
This is the weirdest thing ever, too, by the way, because Andre Drummond seems to be pretending to be this troll, and it's not working. Like, it's not, he's like trying to be a villain. Like, I know some people accidentally slip into it, like Kyrie, where it's just, he says something and then he goes, I don't know why people are attacking me. Where it's like, Andre's like, no, I want to be the bad guy. And then it just backfires because nobody cares.
Well, I think part of it was like I think he probably regretted saying that and was like, oh, wasn't like my excuse be, oh, I'll just say that this was to promote my NFT, like, haha. And then he did like a whole media tour promoting this NFT. Goes on like he did a skit on Jimmy Kimmel last week, and honestly, it was funny. You know, he like And so, like, he's a funny guy, and some of his tweets during this whole process have been funny, but it's just like, you know, maybe pissing off the fans who are already mad about the way the playoffs went to promote your NFT was, like, not the way to go. I don't know, but I'm not, you know, paid to, you know, advise NBA players, so I'm sure someone much smarter than me told him that. Maybe, probably not, it doesn't seem like.
So we were talking about in the first segment, the likelihood of DeMar DeRozan coming to the Lakers seems to be high. I mean, he's the one that seems to be circulating or at least trending the most when it comes to names on Twitter. So if DeMar DeRozan does come to the team, I mean, what is it practical, like salary-wise? What would they have to do to try to acquire him?
So without getting too bogged down in like the salary stuff, because I could talk about this for 20 minutes because these are the things that my brain is filled with. But basically, the Lakers are not going to most likely have cap space regardless. And so, you know, they can shed a bunch of guys and they can like basically renounce all of their current free agents and they would have cap space. But they most likely are not going to do that for DeMar DeRozan. Like that seems unlikely. So either it would be through a sign-in trade that they'd be getting him, but the downside of a sign-in trade is you hard cap yourself, which means you cannot exceed the cap for any reason. So, you know, that kind of puts the team. We saw the Lakers last year we're dealing with a hard cap by virtue of using the biannual exception on Wes Matthews. And so that was an issue for them. And, you can't go over. They had to play a good chunk of the year with only 14 players on the roster because they literally were not allowed to add a 15th one with the amount of money that they were under the hard cap. They were too close to it. So it makes things a lot more complicated for you. So basically, the only realistic way, semi-realistic way, that they could add DeMar DeRozan is if he is willing to take what's called essentially the mini mid-level exception, which is $5.9 million. Now, again, for all three of us on this call, that would be a lot of money. For DeMar DeRozan, who made, $28 million last year, that is a significant pay cut. Now, no team is going to pay him $28 million this upcoming year, but he could probably get $15 million somewhere. Could he get $20 million? I don't know. He was still the best player on a play-in team that, they didn't quite make the playoffs, but he really has modernized his game. He's become a better player. And so for $5.9 million, he would be an absolute bargain, even if the fit is a little iffy with LeBron and AD, but I think at that price, you almost have to do it. But again, it remains to be seen how willing he is to take that much of a pay cut. But the fact that basically there was a leak to the LA Times, they're he really wants to play in LA. And then the next day, DeMar does a podcast where he talks about, how much he'd love to play in LA and how money's not a thing. And then last year when the Lakers were in trade rumors for him, NBA players rarely comment on trade rumors. And he said that he was honored that the Lakers were interested in him in trade rumors. So this is a guy that clearly he's a Kobe disciple. He grew up in LA. He clearly has a lot of fondness for the Lakers organization. It's how much is that worth in terms of money? And he hasn't won. So maybe that is a consideration for him. He really just does not care about the money, wants to go to a contender, wants to play at home. I don't know. But that would seem to be the most realistic avenue that would make the most sense for the Lakers at least.
One more question and then Mark can take it real quick. But I just want you to shatter my dream and tell me if this is realistic or not, okay? In the first segment, I think the Lakers should do a sign-in trade with the Spurs, get DeMar DeRozan to match the contract with Kuzma, and at least that way you will have similar salaries. How does that sound?
So I think that is definitely something that they could look at doing because we do know that the Spurs have interest in Kuzma going back to the draft. And then Papa said nothing but nice things about him during his time with Team USA. It's clear that they are one of the teams in the NBA that would probably value Kuzma a little more highly than most would. But that said, you run into the hard cap issue. So again, that's better than hard capping yourself to pay DeMar DeRozan $20 million. Doing it for $13 million, depending on what other moves you're making, I could see an argument for that. I just think that if they're going to use that kind of Kuzma salary, it's probably going to be in a sign and trade for a bigger fish, or at least they're going to try and use it to sign and trade for a bigger fish, or it's part of this rumored Westbrook deal, or whatever it may be. I feel like they're going to want that to add up the math to a bigger contract than giving DeMar DeRozan $13 million.
So with that being said, do you think it's potentially favorable to put the double I emoji? Kind of whoa, is this could possibly happen? Is it safe to say that yet?
With DeMar?
Yeah, with DeMar and Lakers. Because I know I
think it's pretty safe to start using eyeball emojis at this point. He's been connected to them enough that I'm willing to buy that he's willing to take the pay cut, and at least right now. We'll see. Maybe some team comes in, blows him out of the water with a bigger contract than he was expecting, and he ends up going and playing somewhere else. But I think he's a guy that seems to have always had eyes for LA. I think he probably wants to compete for a championship at this point, and especially if the Lakers can somehow get in on Kyle Lowry sweepstakes and some kind of sign and trade there, then you have to think that would be something that DeMar would take into consideration as well, considering how tight those two are.
Now, do you think there's a reason why, aside from, I think the obvious would be just they'll be much more healthier this season, that all of a sudden the Lakers are becoming a destination for, I guess, rumors, and it kind of feels like the whole league is willing to sign with the Lakers in some way?
Yeah, so, as far as every single free agent getting connected to them, it feels like that, always happened. I'm not sure would have always happened when they were good if social media was as big then as it is now. This is the first, really good team of kind of the NBA Twitter era, at least for the Lakers. And so I think somewhat this is a product of the times. I think this is agents understanding that if they get their clients linked to the Lakers, that's like a boogeyman for the rest of the league. So they're like, no, never mind, Chris Paul. I'll pay you as much as you want. You stay, please. Like, don't leave me for the Lakers. Don't do what Steve Nash did, like when it comes to the Suns or, you know, whatever it may be. And also, you know, I think Rob Pelinka is willing to look at, you know, all of his avenues. I think he's a well-connected guy around the league. I think anytime that you have LeBron on your team, you're going to be a place that a lot of guys want to play because that's the guy that kind of gets you numbers, can get you paid. And just, I mean, the Lakers, you know, right now you can join them and you can look like the reason that they kind of got back to prominence when, you know, I think all of us here really know that for the most part, the Lakers lost last year because of injuries. They would have been a competitive title contending team had they been able to stay healthy. Who knows if they would have defended their title, but they would have come a lot closer than they ultimately ended up doing had they had some semblance of health last year. But, you know, now if you come in and you're, you know, Kyle Lowry or you're Russ or you're, you know, any of these guys, Spencer Dinwiddie, whoever, DeMar, you come in here, you can look like the difference. It's like, oh, everybody forgets about it. It's like, oh, DeMar DeRozan, most improved player, like in year 14. I don't know. Like, you know, you start getting all this buzz around guys and they just feel like they were the reason that pushed it over the top instead of like they were blatantly like ring chasing like they would have maybe felt had they joined the team last year through free agency.
We're on the phone right now with the editor-in-chief of Silver Screen to Roll, Harrison Faigen. You can follow him on Twitter at HMFaigen. That is Faigen. And yesterday we saw the first trade that happened since the start of this offseason. It was between the Pelicans and the Grizzlies, and this kind of could affect the Lakers because as much as people were saying, oh, Kyle Lowry is going to the Lakers, this seems to be the Pelicans now making move cap space to at least see what they're testing the waters right now, and if they're going to get Kyle Lowry a part of that movement. Do you think Kyle Lowry is interested going elsewhere now where the money is?
I mean, you would have to think so, right? He is a guy that he's made pretty good money in his career, but this is really a chance for at 35, truly one last payday, barring some unprecedented level of production for him over the next 3 years of his career. I think at this point, he's probably looking for one last payday. And so, of course, you'd probably consider going to New Orleans. But, I mean, also, if you're Kyle Lowry, would you want to see if you could go somewhere that you're probably going to be a little closer to title contention than that? Yeah, which is why I think the Pelicans, you know, they're not going to go out today and renounce Lonzo Ball's rights or something. Like, they're going to wait and see if they can get in on this Kyle Lowry sweepstakes, if they can actually sign him. And then if they do, then all of a sudden I think Lonzo becomes much more available. And they probably, honestly, they'd probably end up doing the thing that the Lakers did to allow Julius Randle to go to the Pelicans a number of years ago, where they just renounced his rights so the teams aren't afraid to bid on him anymore.
So this is just a personal question because I still have his jersey shirt, but is Lonzo a strong possibility to go with the Lakers as well? I haven't been paying attention to that.
Yeah, no, I mean, you were smart to say the jersey, knowing how tied he is to LA. I think Lonzo is a semi-realistic possibility for the Lakers, but again, I don't know. And I think, again, it's the sign and trade thing that we keep talking about with the hard cap, where would the team be willing to hard cap themselves to bring back Lonzo? I don't know. But, you know, they just traded him away a couple years ago. Now, granted, that was for AD, and maybe they feel like he has grown as a player. He's gotten better than when he left the Lakers. And maybe with his improved shooting, he's a better fit on a team with LeBron and AD. But I just wonder, you know, are they willing to hard cap themselves and kind of use this last bullet right now that they have in their gun to go and get Lonzo, you know, and would the Pelicans be willing to deal with the Lakers, you know, given their ownership and how badly they reacted to the Anthony Davis trade? Are they really going to help Lonzo get back there? I kind of doubt it. And, you know, and that also depends on how much does he want to be back home in LA at this stage of his life versus, you know, 8 years from now or whatever, when he's getting a little older, maybe that becomes more of a consideration. But I think right now he's probably going to go wherever pays him the most money. So it just remains to be seen if that's the Lakers. And it doesn't seem like he's their first option based on the names that we're hearing them connected to.
All right, last question, and we got about 30 seconds. Pretend you're The Bachelor, right? This is a reality show. You have 2 roses to give for these people to join LeBron and AD next year. Who are the 2 people you can get, or who are the 2 people you're going to give the roses to this offseason?
So I think for me, it would be, I would honestly go Lowry and DeMar probably, just because I think that Lowry gives you the star point guard the Lakers are clearly looking for, but he also, has the shooting, ability and stuff like that. And then if you can somehow get DeMar to come up, although at that point you're hard capped, so I don't know if that's really realistic, but, out of those kind of role player guys they can potentially get, he seems the most potentially likely to take a pay cut. And so that would probably be my two guys. Although, again, it would be really hard under the cap.